This is not a video I ever wanted to make, but my conscience compels me to share the truths of the Catholic faith. Many of you know that I am critical of the Freemasonic and Protestant Novus Ordo, or New Mass. I've spent many years explaining the problems with this liturgy, but my eyes were recently opened to the fact that the Novus Ordo is simply the end product of centuries upon centuries of modernism creeping into the liturgy. And that brings me to the unfortunate topic I share with you today, which is that the traditional low mass that is beloved by many trads is actually an inferior and modernist liturgy. Many of you are probably thinking, how can this be? Low mass is perfectly theologically sound and contains no heresy. And while that may be true on the surface, remember that the Novus Ordo is not problematic because of what it contains, but rather what was removed from it. The same is true for the low mass. For those who have eyes to see it, the low mass is merely a stripped down and simplified version of the high mass. Let's take a look at the key ingredients that are missing. Chronologically, you will notice that the Aspergus Mei is removed entirely from the low mass. Why is this? I think it's obvious that the architects of this form of the Mass thought such a ceremony was unnecessary and perhaps even offensive to the faithful. By removing it, they're essentially saying that we don't need it. And as you are well aware, since Protestant liturgies do not contain the Aspergus Mei, this means that low Masses are essentially Protestant in nature. The second point is the complete removal of sacred music. It is actually sad that a Novus Ordo, though it is a Freemasonic and Protestant service, at least can in theory contain chant and polyphony. But the low mass cannot. In fact, it would be considered a violation of the rubrics to include those elements in a low mass, which only proves that the people who created this diabolical liturgy intended to deprive the faithful of this aspect of our spiritual patrimony. Finally, if you ever attend low masses during the week, you will probably notice that the priest rarely, if ever, gives a homily at those masses. This again is a case of depriving the faithful of sound instruction in the faith. By refusing to teach the Catholic faith at low masses, the priest is essentially conceding to relativism and giving the impression that instruction of doctrine is somehow optional. Of course, many say that this is simply a practical consideration, as many people don't have time for an hour-and-a-half high mass on weekdays. But this kind of thinking, being overly concerned about saving time, is exactly what people use to justify things like extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion. So I simply ask you, dear brothers and sisters, to avoid the low mass at all costs, as it is a danger to your faith. And if for some reason you only have low mass available to you, you are, of course, dispensed from your Sunday obligation, as the Society of St. Pius X has taught.